Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. I have covered a lot of evil and truly horrific stories on this show. And personally, I don't think I've covered anything quite like this before. I know that there are some truly evil, wicked, and despicable humans out there. And this video, my friends, if this doesn't make you trust the government any less, or if it doesn't make you get angry at the government, it more than likely would and should, because the government has created the biggest cover up, I believe, in human history. And that's saying something, right? This is the UK government, and I'm talking about the Islamic or Muslim grooming gangs. You haven't been across this story, I guarantee that you would be horrified to read the transcript of what these despicable, evil, and vile men did to the likes of a 13-year-old girl. It made me cry. That's just being honest, man. And I wrestled with making a video about this. I've wrestled with the content, the information, and I'm going to do the very best that I can. So I'm going to try and make two videos about this to cover what I can. But essentially, what's taken place is the UK government has decided that they were going to cover up all of these Muslim gangs' vile and despicable acts because they were too afraid of a more racial outcry or backlash. So instead of doing the right thing in a sane world whereby justice reigns supreme and these evil, twisted men would be jailed straight away, no, they were allowed to continue doing their evil, vile acts to young girls, and they were able to traffic young girls for a long time because the government turned a blind eye to it. In fact, they encouraged it by allowing these people to continue. They didn't follow real justice. They didn't follow the law. In fact, it looks as if that there were politicians that, even though they knew about it, they chose to ignore it. Those people are going to have to answer to God one day. And to me, this entire situation that I first found out about through Elon Musk, I wouldn't have found out about this if it wasn't for Twitter, if it wasn't for X, because Elon Musk found out about this. And when Elon Musk started sharing it, I'm going, maybe I should do a little bit more investigation. I initially heard Tommy Robinson talk about the Rotham grooming gangs. Now, he's been jailed for telling the truth about what has taken place to English girls at the hands of these immigrants that are coming in from goodness knows where, but they're Muslims. They want Sharia law. They want things to be their way. And as a result, all these young girls are being groomed and then taken and then exploited, and then truly horrific things take place. I read the court transcript of what these men did, and I cried. I felt sick. I could not believe what these sickos did to not just one girl, but thousands of girls, thousands of them. And that is why the UK government should be held responsible for what they did. They're liable. All these men, they all should be, if you ask me, they should just be done away with. It makes you want them to all for what they did. I'm not the only one that believes that, by the way. Ali Bestaki, who is one of the most ultra conservative Christians that I know, she says it as well. She read the court transcript and she was horrified. She was sickened by it. And I'm sure many of you that watch me, you trust me enough to know that when I say don't read it, you don't want to read it. In the same world, the police and justice system would have come up to her to help her. and punish those responsible for her and her family's suffering. But that is not what happened. The British police had a higher priority than saving girls like her from the R word. Their main priority at the time was preserving the state's ideals of diversity and inclusion. So when they learned that the men responsible for her situation were foreign immigrants, her case was quickly swept under the rug and her suffering was allowed to continue. This was a fate she shared with hundreds, if not thousands, of other young British girls, some as young as 11, in the city of Rotherham, a community of about 100,000 people. For many years, these defenseless girls were made victims of the city's vicious grooming gangs and were subjected to R word, P word, and drug trafficking. But the way the British law enforcement dealt with these grooming gangs was just as appalling. For it is now known that for many years, the police deliberately allowed the activities of these gangs to continue purely for ideological concerns. If this doesn't make you angry, my friends, I don't know what will. And I'm going to do the very best I can to remain as measured as I can. For decades, the British regime had preached the ideology of liberalism, which included ideas such as diversity being a strength, denying the importance of nationhood, and claiming that falling birth rates could be easily remedied by immigration. The main reason for the police inaction was the fact that most members of these gangs were of immigrant background. And if they were to confront these foreign grooming gangs, the state's ideology and slogans would come into question. Of course, we can't have that, can we? We can't do the right thing because our ideology is more important than doing the right thing. If the British people were to become aware that foreigners were responsible for such a large-scale R word of their children, they would begin to doubt the regime's message on diversity. So the message became more important than the safety and innocence of these young girls. Thus, the police decided that the grooming gangs had to be covered up. In 2000, British citizen Adele Weir started investigating the grooming gangs, uncovering the truth about many of their activities. She then proceeded to present the collected information to the local police. Yet, instead of punishing the criminals, it was Weir who was punished, very similar to Tommy Robinson. She was told that she was never to mention the Asian men, members of the gang, again, and was forced to undergo a 2-day re-education session on ethnicity and diversity. In the following years, many other locals tried to persuade the police to go after the grooming gangs, but all were similarly sidelined. Knowing that the police would not follow the cases of the R word, some citizens tried to have the grooming gang members prosecuted because of their drug trafficking, but again to no avail. It wouldn't be until 2010 when the first of these R-wordists was convicted by the British justice system. But by then, the lives of hundreds of innocent English girls had already been destroyed. In the years that followed, the British people gradually became aware of the Rotherham grooming gangs and the British police's inaction towards them. But despite this, the callousness of the British government towards the R word of its citizens by foreigners seems to continue. Last year, an Iranian man who had R-worded a British woman managed to escape deportation on the grounds of preserving his human rights, as the court claimed that since R-word carries the death penalty in Iran and executing R-wordists is bad according to the British state, then he should be allowed to remain in Britain. Another worrying development came a few weeks ago when a British court declared if S-word offenders were to receive physical punishment for their acts in their home countries, then they would be allowed to stay in the UK, essentially turning, assault of British women into a residency ticket. actually disgusting. And ironically, while the British government continues to protect those who are word its own citizens, it is also busy making up stories of you-know-what assault in other countries. Yesterday, the British state media, BBC, released a half-an-hour documentary accusing Iranian security officers of S-word assaulting and killing a 16-year-old girl based on a leaked document from an anonymous source. The problem is that a review of this leaked document shows the most basic errors which prove it is an amateur forgery. For example, the document lacks the mandatory official stamping and date markers, and also calls the Iranian law enforcement Najah, which its actual name is Faraja. The claims made in this document also contradict statements previously made by the girl's mother to Iranian opposition media. For example, the BBC's reports claims that she was arrested at around 5 p.m., while her mother has asserted that her daughter was at large at 11:30 p.m. And while the British state spends money and resources covering fake stories of you-know-what assault in other countries, the real stories of many English girls, like the girls of Rotherham, remain largely suppressed. Why is that? This is one of the biggest and greatest cover-up stories in human history. And now it's finally being exposed, thanks to Elon Musk and many others. Tommy Robinson, who is an actual hero to many, who should be treated as one, but is not, who's serving time in prison for nothing, for doing the right thing. Meanwhile, scumbags that are part of these gangs, they roam free, still continuing to do the horrific acts that they're doing. The UK, to me at least, has fallen. Immigration is at alarming rates. The UK citizens have had enough. It's only a matter of time. The UK government is in shambles, as it seems. The UK citizens hate what's going on, and the police are enforcing the will of the UK government, Keir Starmer's government, man. It's a utopia for an immigrant and a hellscape for a citizen. And I fear that it's going to happen here in Australia. You can't even walk down Lakemba in New South Wales without police. If you're a woman, that is, if you're a woman walking down the street in Lakemba, the police officers will come up to you and remove you for disturbing the peace, because the Muslim men get so upset. They could cause a scene and the police don't want to do anything about it. Human trafficking is at its all-time high because we have leaders in positions of power that are allowing it to continue. And it needs to stop. And thankfully, Trump's going to hopefully do something about it. Find the missing girls, because there's lots of them. Not just the girls, but the boys too. And my friends, you guys take care, be blessed, and I'll see you all in the next video.